Hey YouTubers, it's Charlie. This is going to be my Speedy video. So, Willa Holland finally getting called up to the majors, gonna get to have some fun in Season 4. There was always a lot of question as to what her superhero name was going to be, and it wasn't always certain that she was going to be a superhero. Thea Queen is actually an original creation of the show. There is no Thea Queen in the comics. Because there's such a strong foundation for Oliver Queen's story in the comics, Green Arrow's been around for a long time, it presented some interesting issues for her character. Most notably, what's her role in the narrative if she's not an action hero, she's not a villain, and she's not part of the inner circle, like she's not on classic Team Arrow, which is, Diggle, Felicity, and Oliver. That is why she was like one of the most underserved characters for the first 2 seasons. Mark Guggenheim he was really honest about how hard it was to write for her character, just because it's like, you have all these things going on with the Mirakuru saga, how does Thea fit into it? Merlin was basically the backdoor to that, making her Merlin's daughter. In the comics, there have been 2 really big characters to be called Speedy. The first was Roy Harper, who obviously, big character on the show. The second being Mia Dearden. Obviously, Mia Dearden doesn't exist on the show, but you have to consider that Thea's full name is Thea Dearden Queen. So that's how you get to Thea Speedy Queen. The show has not always been super consistent with which character it calls Speedy, but I think it's just been true to the comics. Because Roy Harper has been Speedy in the comics, I think that they let Oliver call him Speedy on the show just as a reference to that. Thankfully, Roy Harper has had several aliases in the comics, so it wasn't that big a deal for them to pick another one. I know you might be asking too, why wasn't one of them, Roy or Thea, called Red Arrow? Because that seemed like the final stage of them being a superhero. It's like Speedy is the nickname you give to someone who's just starting out, then Arsenal, just like a little bit more hardcore, then you graduate to Red Arrow. The reason I think the show went there is because it's too similar to Oliver's name. Because he's called the Arrow, they would have also been called the Arrow. They weren't doing green or red yet, because Oliver's not ready to be Green Arrow yet. So it would have undercut Oliver's journey to give one of the other characters like the full comic book name. It's the same with the Canary and the Black Canary, the way they mess with the names. It's like you get the half name when you're still on the road to becoming the superhero. Then when you're the superhero, you get the full name. Thea's obviously just starting out, so her name might change in a couple of seasons too, but I'm actually kind of hoping that she stays Speedy, just because it feels so appropriate for her. So what about Mia Dearden's backstory in the comics? Obviously, like I said, very different from Thea Queen's story, just because they're 2 different characters. But she started out in the comics in 2001. She was created by Kevin Smith. I think her first issue was Green Arrow number 2, that's volume 3. Like a lot of female comic book heroes, she has a somewhat problematic origin story. Mia Dearden was abused by her father, then taken in by a pimp, became a prostitute, and then became one of the notable HIV-positive superheroes in DC Comics. Clearly, that's just like a little too topical for the CW. There are enough sexual crimes against women, we don't need to turn all of them into prostitutes to show that they've overcome struggle. That's one of the reasons why they probably gave Thea the drug storyline in Season 1, although that felt kind of half-hearted. Like a rich kid developing a drug habit to rebel against their parents feels a little cliche at this point. It feels like Judd Winnick, who at the time had taken over the title, wanted like an HIV positive character. So when she became Speedy finally, she was like one of the big HIV positive DC heroes. In the context of the comics, Oliver finds her, rescues her from prostitution, and rehabilitates her by training her how to protect herself. So she eventually becomes his ward, develops a relationship with Oliver's son, Connor Hawke, and just continues to petition Oliver to become his new sidekick, although he keeps denying her. Eventually, he lets her join the team officially. That's when she takes the name Speedy. That was in issue number 45, when she took the name. The really fun thing is that Roy Harper came in and gave Mia all of his old gear that he used when he used to be Speedy. So her primary weapon became the bow and arrow. She eventually got tied up in this big Red Hood saga, where the Red Hood was trying to teach everyone the consequences of taking on sidekicks. She was part of the big brouhaha when Oliver married Black Canary, although it turned out that it was actually Everyman, which is kind of funny. You remember, he was actually on The Flash. Eventually, she ended up changing her costume just to differentiate herself from Oliver, who, obviously wore green, and Roy, who had become Red Arrow at that time. On the show, obviously, we know Thea's going to be wearing Roy's old costume that's just, been slightly modified. It's just that Willa Holland, the actress, is way smaller than Colton, so obviously they just shrink the costume down just a little bit. If anything's going to change about her costume in Season 4, it's just going to be like the addition of new special gear. Like it's not going to change in any big way. So far, she hasn't really shown up in the New 52. She only appeared in a picture. Someone was trying to track her down who felt she was a threat. So she only appeared in someone's picture as a piece of evidence. Because Convergence is happening now and it's kind of retconning a lot of the New 52, it remains to be seen whether or not she's going to show up again. But because we have Thea Queen on the show becoming Speedy, expect to see some form of that happen in the comics. We're at the point now where like movies and TV are having more influence on the comics than the comics are having on movies and TV, at least the new comics. That's a little disingenuous. I mean, movies and TV still borrow from the comics a lot, but it's mostly from really classic comics, like, Frank Miller era. For the most part, the character's defining trait has been, troubled teen who has overcome her really, really nasty past to become a pretty good superhero, but she hasn't risen to the level of Oliver Queen or Roy Harper yet. But you have to remember that she hasn't been around that long, and she hasn't even really been part of the New 52 at all. So the good thing about that is that they can do whatever they want to on the show without stepping on a lot of the canon. I know, people always complain when they change comic book stuff, but, I think the Arrow with Thea Queen here, I think they'll be just fine. Usually when people are talking about the TV show canon, they're talking about, how does it connect to the movies? And the answer is for all DC stuff across the board, no matter where it airs, which network, it does not cross over. That's kind of a good thing for the Arrowverse, because, the Flash, Arrow, Legends of Tomorrow, Supergirl, kind of not connected, kind of connected, kind of a bit of a gray area. Because they don't have to tie in with the movies, they can really do whatever stories they want, as long as they don't step on the toes of the movies. That's why you see Arrow pulling back on the Suicide Squad. Even though there are a lot of great characters they developed, Warner Brothers just doesn't want the TV show stepping on the movies because they feel like they're going to make so much money with this movie. Really, we need to talk about how much fun Willa Holland is going to have playing a superhero on the show now. Because of the way they've split all the characters off to the 4 wins, she actually has quite a bit to do now. She's basically replacing 2 people inside Team Arrow. She's replacing Roy, she took his costume, and she's replacing Oliver as the bow-using member of the team. Technically, Diggle is going to be the new Oliver in Starling City, like the new team leader inside Team Arrow. Here's my big question for you guys. Now that Thea Queen is going to be out prowling the streets as Speedy, what kind of villain do you want them to give her to defeat? I feel like one of the easy slam dunks that you can give to comic book characters to help them progress is give them a big villain to defeat. Like they go up against a villain, get their ass handed to them, have to go off, gain new skills, new knowledge, grow as a character before they can come back and defeat said villain. We really don't know what Thea's arc is going to be in season 4. It's a little clearer what Oliver's is going to be. Everyone else is still kind of a bit of a mystery. That's the funny part about Arrow. You always know where the Oliver Queen is going, whether it takes 1 season, 2, 3 seasons. He is going to Green Arrow. That's who he's becoming. I think there is a solid chance that he could be Green Arrow in season 5, like early season 5. Whether or not he gets there by the end of season 4 remains to be seen. But for the most part, for most of the season, he's just going to be Oliver Queen. For those asking about Roy, he is coming back to guest star in season 4 at least a couple times, probably something to do with Thea's storyline in the city. You have to remember that Oliver left because they're still there, so they're going to be stuck in Starling City cleaning up crime. So just a quick reminder on my DC and Marvel giveaways. Those will start next week. Just look out for the Marvel and DC videos I post for details. It'll be really simple. I actually just realized that I haven't done a Roy Harper video yet. I think I meant to do one early this year and just never got to it. So that will probably be my next Arrow video. Be sure to subscribe to get that. He has been around forever, so we can talk about heroin, we can talk about all kinds of stuff. There's some other cool stuff this weekend that I'm working on. I'm probably going to do a new Daredevil Bullseye video because he's probably going to be in next season, so it's going to be a lot of fun. While you guys wait for that, you can click here to learn all about Mirror Master coming to Flash Season 2, and you can click here to learn all about Guardians of the Galaxy 2. James Gunn's just been dropping a bunch of details. Thank you so much for watching, everybody. Let's high five. I'll see you guys tonight.